Hi guys, I'm popping in before this episode because last week, devastating fires tore through Los Angeles. One of those fires hit my community and the people I know and love really, really hard. And I grieve with all of LA and express my deepest gratitude for the first responders, especially the men and the women of the various fire departments, as the battle to contain these fires goes on. I recorded this week's episode in December, and as you'll hear in the episode, we discuss the idea of having faith in something bigger than yourself. For Sister Jean, that's God. For you or me, maybe it's something else. Personally, I've been floored by the kindness and empathy I've seen, the donations pouring into the GoFundMes, the stacks of clothing and toys and diapers and wipes and food. There's a famous quote from Fred Rogers of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood that I wanted to share. When I was a boy and I would see scary things in the news, my mother would say to me, "Look for the helpers. You will always find people who are helping." And it's so true. There's been so much devastation, but the people of LA and the people who love LA are lifting this wonderful community up. I'm so sorry if you or anyone you know and love has been affected by these fires. I have faith in you, and I have faith in the kindness I've seen. If you're able, please consider donating to any of the amazing organizations at work to help victims and support first responders. I'll include a great link to many options in the show notes. Take care, and here's the episode. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Babes in Bookland. I'm your host, Alex Franca, and today I'm chatting about Sister Jean's Wake Up with Purpose, what I've learned in my first 100 years with my friend Suze. Before we get to the episode, I've got a review from Apple Podcasts by Maddie in LA. Great show, good books, nice interviews. Short and sweet. Thanks, Maddie. Let's get to the episode. Hi, Suze.
Hi, Alex. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for coming on. Sister Jean, what did you think? You loved her before. You knew about her before.
I hadn't heard about her until March Madness.
Yes.
So in 2018, I really liked this book. I didn't really know what it was going to be like. I feel like she's lived for, at this point, 105 years?
Yes.
She's still going. And how do you put that many years into, I don't know, a couple hundred pages? But I found her really relatable. I found her like someone that I would want to mentor me.
Yeah, I think there's a reason why people were so enamored by her, because she just shines bright. There's just like a light that seems to emanate from this woman. And I think we'll get into what I think that light is, which is really what I think the purpose of her memoir, Wake Up with Purpose, is her hoping to share a part of her life and the things in her life that helped her find peace and helped her be this light in the world so that we can also find peace and be a light in the world, hopefully.
Yeah. Definitely. I definitely took a lot away from this book, so I'm excited to dive in.
Let's get going. It was published in 2023, so more recent memoir. This is a second for me, Suze. No dedication, which I thought was really interesting because usually these memoirs have, some of them have pretty lengthy dedications, but they're always dedicated to someone. Maybe Sister Jean's is just dedicated to everyone.
Yeah. Honestly, she should dedicate it to herself. Seriously. She's done it all.
Seriously. Okay, so I like to start all the episodes off with some quick topics. And I know you are a huge college basketball junkie. You're a huge March Madness junkie. Why do you like college basketball so much, Suze?
I grew up loving college basketball. My dad played college basketball. He played at Syracuse, and his team had a moment like Loyola Chicago where they were like the underdogs and they made it to the Final Four based on like a shot that my dad took. They upset North Carolina. They upset Kansas State.
Hell yeah, Suze's dad. Good job.
Yeah. And then they made it to the Final Four and they lost in the Final Four, but he was like the all tournament high scorer. So college basketball has been ingrained in me since I was born.
Did you play basketball growing up?
Yeah, I played until high school, and then I kind of focused on one sport. I focused on tennis after that. My dad and I actually danced to the March Madness anthem, One Shining Moment, when I got married.
Oh my gosh, I didn't know that was a song that played. Not that I would have maybe recognized that, but that is so cool. I love that.
We didn't know what to dance to. So he was like, what about One Shining Moment? And I was like, yes, this is perfect.
Absolutely perfect. Okay, so next quick topic. She writes this at one point. No matter how old I got, when I was home, my father always treated me like I was 16. I'm grown up now, Dad, I'd admonish him, but no matter. And I know that you get to spend a lot of time with your family, including your siblings.
siblings. Do you guys fall back into y'all's dynamics from childhood? So your sister's the oldest and your brother's the middle child, or am I flipping that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. My sister is definitely like she knows everything. She's always right. And honestly, she usually is. And she's kind of like the ringleader. I'm kind of like the peacemaker.
Okay.
My brother and sister are also so close in age. They're like 13 months apart. So they butt heads a lot, honestly, still to this day. But an hour later, they call each other their best friends. They've forgotten what they've talked about. And I'm like, how are you doing this? Like, how are you not still annoyed with the person? I can't let anything go.
Oh my gosh, I love that. That's all I wanted growing up. So, as we said at the time of recording, Sister Jean is 105 years old. What do you think the secret of living a long life is? Sister Jean would say that it's, no shock here, living with a purpose. She writes, there's also a lot of luck involved with living this long, but I do think having a daily, consistent purpose has kept me not only alive, but young and vibrant. And I would add, through reading her memoir, that it also seems to be living with a deep sense of peace. She's not very anxious or stressed about anything. It has been proven that stress ages us. She even writes this at one point. I chuckle to myself when people tell me they're stressed. I tell them, just wait till you get a few more years on your bones. You'll learn to go with the flow. Maybe they figure if a 100-year-old lady isn't all that twisted, they could lighten up a bit too. Life is too short to be stressed all the time. And while I think that God and her faith is super important to Sister Jean, I'm excited to discuss her takeaways with you and how we can all reflect and maybe apply to our life regardless of our preferred religion, regardless if we're religious or not. Would you say that you're like an anxious or stressed out person?
Yes, 100%. And I think I think I would be the person that Sister Jean is chuckling at. I stress mostly though about like things that I can't control. I don't really stress about like if I've got a lot of work to do or I don't really stress about that kind of stuff. And I do feel like it negatively affects me. So I did really enjoy hearing Sister Jean's view on that, and it is something that I'm like trying to not, have weigh on me so much.
Yeah. What are the ways that you're trying to do that?
I'm just trying to like, recognize like, okay, is this something that is affecting me or that I can control? No. Okay. Like just try to put it out of my thoughts.
Yeah, sometimes it is just like checking yourself. For me, when I start to spiral, I will pull up a book. I am constantly keeping a book on my Kindle app on my phone because I am kind of like addicted to the feeling of my phone being in my hand, which is something that I'm working on.
Same.
But I would go to Instagram or I'd go to Reddit and I realized that it just wasn't serving me. It was a lot of like fear mongering, a lot of things that, like you said, it was information that wasn't helping me feel better about things. There was things that I couldn't control. And so now I'm training myself to open my Kindle app and just whatever fluffy little lovely book that I'm reading, it's always light. Usually there's some sort of magical element involved. I'm very into witchy stuff right now. And I feel like it's really helped.
That's a good way to just put your mind on something else too. I feel like working out sometimes helps.
Yes.
Like working out or going outside for a walk or something like that.
Oh my gosh, this is so crazy. I recently discovered the term forest bathing. Have you ever heard of this?
No.
It's literally what it sounds like. You go into the woods, into a forest, and turn your phone off, disconnect, and you just bathe in nature and the trees, and it chemically helps reset you and reduce anxiety and stress. So that's exactly right.
Oh my
Just
gosh.
getting out there in nature. I know.
Okay.
Okay, next quick topic. As you said, you went to Loyola, Maryland, and St. Ignatius of Loyola, his motto was go forth and set the world on fire. You brought up this motto to me actually when we were kind of texting back and forth about the book, and then it popped up in St. Jean's book. St. Jean's book. She probably will be a saint one day.
She will be a saint.
Sister Jean's book. I would just love to hear a little bit about your experience at a Jesuit college and like what that motto means to you, because that is an incredible motto. Go forth and set the world on fire. Love it.
I remember when I was at Loyola, that motto kind of popped up everywhere, on the wall of a building, or it was in like the front cover of a book. And I always loved that saying just because I feel like I have a lot of ambition. So it kind of like stuck with me of like, oh, I'm going to leave here and I am going to like light this place up in like a good way. I always took it as we take what we've been given with this Jesuit education, like from God, and we go out and release it into the world to make the world a better place. And that's kind of like how I interpreted it. I always remember professors or people at Loyola would say, like, okay, what is the greater good? And then how do we go out and achieve it? And not just doing one thing for yourself or for something smaller, you're doing it for like the greater good.
I think that's something that should be more talked about maybe today.
Yeah.
Okay, so the last quick topic, Sister Jean writes about the game of change, and I had never heard of this, so I just wanted to kind of share this with our listeners. This was a basketball game from the 1962-1963 season. This is when she's talking about Loyola as a basketball program. She writes, back then there was an unwritten rule in college basketball that a team should not have more than 2 Black players in the game at the same time. Loyola's coach at the time, George Ireland, regularly played 3 or 4 Black players. Loyola gets to the NCAA tournament and they're slated to play Mississippi. A lot of people in Mississippi had a problem with their all-white team playing against this other team that had quite a few Black members at the time playing. And so the president of Mississippi State had to literally sneak his team out of state. They ended up playing the game in Michigan because they knew that it would be a problem if they played it in Mississippi. Because like I said, so many politicians tried to stop this from happening. And Loyola ended up winning the game 61-51. But this was just a very historical game. I'm going to link an article about it in the show notes. Sister Jean goes on right after this section to explain that she personally feels like whoever is the best at something should have opportunity and access, no matter what their skin color is. I didn't find much when I was doing a little digging about, I don't know if like all of a sudden all the other teams with Black players felt like they could play more than 2 at that time, but it does seem like a dam was broken with this game because it did cause such like a national stir.
I actually noted that quote down because the quote that you're talking about, I think, is Sister Jean says, sports has always been one of the best places for social progress to be made. It's a simple formula. If you want to win the game, you have to put your best players in there regardless of their race. And I just thought that was like, yeah.
Yeah. Is that kind of weird that still feels like it's stopping us in our tracks in 2024, 2025 when this episode will air? I know, because it feels like such a no-brainer and we still feel like we have to say something about it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we're going to talk a little bit more about how Sister Jean draws parallels with sports and teamwork to life and how she feels society should exist as we get further into her book. But let's dive deeper. Let's learn about Sister Jean and how she does it. So before the March Madness, we're going to talk about her childhood. Sister Jean was born in the Bay Area of California 9 months after World War I started on August 21st, 1919. And when you see these dates, it just is like crazy.
One thing that actually really struck me was when she talks about remembering the Golden Gate Bridge being built, which happened in 1933.
Right.
So that really made me think, wow, she's really lived a long life. And I like think of the Golden Gate Bridge as like this iconic, I grew up watching Full House and
yes.
I'm just like, this thing has been here forever. And then I hear her say that she remembers it being built and she was born in 1919. So she was 13. So that kind of was the first time in this book that I was like, oh my gosh.
I know you hear somebody's 105. And then when you think about all the things that they have witnessed in their lifetime, it just really puts everything into perspective. And it also helps you understand that like World War I was not that long ago. Yes, 100 years seems like a long time, but when it's still somebody's lifetime who's still living, you're just like, oh.
Yeah.
So Sister Jean was born named Dolores Bertha, and later 2 younger brothers joined the family. So she writes this about her father. My dad taught us that God made the stars and the skies and that he loved us. He was always watching over us and he wanted us to be happy. Of course, that doesn't mean that everything will go our way, but if we hold on to that belief, we can trust that God has a reason for everything that happens, even if we don't quite understand it at the time. And this is sort of alluding to that sense of peace that I mentioned earlier that we'll talk more about. But I wondered, because I struggle with this, do you give yourself permission to be happy?
I feel like this is tricky for me also. I feel like this is also like a therapy session for me.
Right? And asking the real questions here.
Asking the real questions. I'd say sometimes, yes, 100%, but sometimes no. And the only way I can like try to explain the no part is I feel like I'm very aware of my surroundings. So if something is off in one area, whether it be with family or friends or work or something, then I kind of feel like, okay, how can I be 100% happy if this little thing is off, which I know is not right, but I just feel like that's kind of how I operate. But then sometimes I'm like, there's times when I have a complete like YOLO attitude where I'm like, this is the greatest thing ever. No one can rain on my parade. So really, there's no middle ground.
Yeah. It's funny, the phrase comparison is the thief of joy, I think can happen in both ways. It can happen when you compare yourself and somebody's doing better than you are, but it sometimes feels like for me, my joy is robbed if I only think about the suffering in the world. And so her book just overall was like a nice reminder that being happy and being grateful can coexist at the same time with suffering of the world, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I
And
fully
it still
agree with
doesn't
you.
mean that I shouldn't do anything about it. It's really important that we're all aware of it because I think that's how we make the world better. And that's how we are part of the greater good, as you were talking about earlier. But yeah, I think sometimes I can get a little bogged down in that.
I think too, as a person, I'm definitely an empath. And if you're going through something as your friend, I'm kind of like feeling that for you. And I think for me, it's sometimes I'm like empathetic to a fault. And I think that's where it goes back to like, not being able to control things that I can't control, where
Yes.
it's like, I can't control.
All tied in, right?
It's all tied in together.
Yeah, and that's a big part of the way that she lives her life too, is like she relinquishes so much control to God, which like I'm not at that place in my life where I'm just like, I trust that God, because I have a lot of questions with that. And I think she just has this beautiful blind faith, which I think is lovely, but it's just something that I struggle with. Okay, back to Sister Jean. Both of her parents come from large families, but out of her father's family, he was the only one who got married and had children. So they didn't have many cousins, but lots of aunts and uncles. She also writes that she was put in charge of her brothers often and that they got along well. She writes, a big reason was that we never tattled on one another. If our parents asked us what was happening, we told them the truth, but if something went wrong between us, we took care of it ourselves. She continues, there was only one time I remember when I got in real trouble with my parents. I got mad at my brother and kicked him. I didn't mean to hurt him, but he started bleeding. My mother talked to me about it, but she wasn't much for punishments. She would rather reason with us and let us think about what was right or wrong based on our conversation. Okay, so you talked about your family a little bit before. Were you guys fighters?
My siblings and I were very close, and honestly, almost too close sometimes. Like we're all in each other's business. We know everything. So shout out to like my husband, my sister-in-law for dealing with that because it's a lot. And I definitely did not fight much with my siblings. Honestly, I would be the one that like if they were fighting, I was crying, being like, you guys. My sister was probably punished the most, not because she was like a bad kid, but because she definitely like had to get the last word in. My parents came up with this check system. They started it probably, I don't know, a few months before she turned 16. And so every time she talked back or had to get the last word in or something like of that nature, she would get a check on the refrigerator. And then every check translated to a day that she had to wait to get her driver's license. Because she really wanted her driver's license. She would never just get one check. She would get like 6 to 10 checks per sitting. And it got to the point where like my brother and I would just be like, she'd get going and she would start going and going and going. And my brother and I would just be like heckling from the peanut gallery, like check, check, check. And I think by the time she turned 16, she had like 6 months worth of checks. And then I don't remember her. I think my parents might have made her wait like 3 months before she actually got her driver's license, but it was definitely like comical.
Yeah, that's a really creative punishment because it's so tricky. It's like you want to raise strong women.
Yeah.
Who are confident in their opinions, but you also have to prepare them for a world where, not everybody appreciates being spoken to like that or will even listen.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I think that that's something that as a society, we have to sort of wake up to a little bit is like people don't want to feel like they're stupid if you disagree with them. And then people shut down and stop listening to you if you just kind of come at them. Right. So that's really funny. But I'm glad that your sister was able to negotiate the sentence.
Oh, yeah.
Shorter sentence and get that driver's license. Also, your parents are probably like, get out of the house, girl, go, bye.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like my parents used to always say too, they were like, it's not about what you're saying, it's about how you're saying it.
Yeah, that's a huge lesson. Sister Jean, she learned many very important things from her parents' writing. My parents were incredibly understanding and accepting of people. From the start, they emphasized the idea that we should accept everyone no matter who they are, what they believe, who they love, or how they pray. I don't recall my parents ever using the word diversity. We were taught to be so accepting of differences that we hardly noticed them. And she writes writes that she feels she was really blessed to have been raised in a community of immigrants from all over the world. So she was introduced to many cultures and peoples from a very young age. And I think that that plays such an important part in your worldview. If you're in this bubble where everyone looks the same, acts the same, thinks the same way, it's really hard to challenge yourself out of that. But if from the go, you experience people from all sorts of different cultures, walking all sorts of different lives, like it's just normalized.
Yeah.
I know that you travel the world a lot now. Like every time I am on Instagram, I have FOMO because you are just in London where you just were or wherever. Was that something that your family did a lot growing up? Like they showed you the world, or is that something that happened later for you?
Yeah, we definitely did not travel like internationally growing up much, but we were definitely exposed. Like my mom's side, she's 100% Italian. So I knew about the Italian culture and all of that growing up. We traveled around the US quite a bit, but I do think traveling really has helped me even more so to this day, just see different cultures and see how other people live. And a lot of it is very different from what we do. Even like when you go to Europe, people live so much more minimalistically. And then you're here in the US and it's like about excess. And so even that has really taught me like, I don't need all this stuff. Like I don't need to have so much stuff. Like people live perfectly great lives with so much less stuff. But I feel like I was taught acceptance from a really young age because my grandfather on my dad's side he was a double amputee from the moment I met him. He was 19 years old. He lost both of his legs in World War II. So he was on a ship off the coast of Martha's Vineyard and another ship collided with their ship and he lost both of his legs. So my entire life, my dad's entire life, he was a double amputee. So I don't really remember him ever wearing prosthetics. My dad said he did a lot, but for my entire life, he was always in a wheelchair. So for me, like that was such a normal thing. And like I would crawl all over his wheelchairs. He would give me rides down the hallway. We would do races in them. So it was never like I feel like that has just taught me that like people are different and that's a fact.
Yeah.
With my grandpa, I think he's such a big reason that I feel that way about people of all walks of life. He would always say like, he never considered himself disabled. So I'm like, well, why should I? If you don't, why should I?
Yeah. Yeah. It just feels like you being exposed to somebody who just has to live life a little differently helped you just normalize it, which is exactly what she's talking about.
Yeah. And I think like he played basketball with my dad. He would throw the football. He liked to like work on cars. He drove. He just had like a different car. So his car had all of the gears were like up at his hand. So he would do it by hand instead of like by foot.
I think it's so lovely when adults can lead by example to be accepting of people who are different from us, especially as a child. Seeing someone else do that, it's monumental in shaping your thinking. You had that, Sister Jean had that, I had that. When you don't have that, when maybe you grow up with the opposite approach, I feel like it just adds a lot of unnecessary hatred and bitterness to your life.
Yeah.
Sister Jean actually writes this really poignant section where she vaguely understood that there was something different about some of the men in her community, and this parish now currently is one of the most welcoming and accepting of the LGBTQ plus community. And though she was told by most adults to stay away from them and alert an authoritative figure if approached by one, Jean, still as Dolores at this point, tells her father that they seem okay. And her father replies, quote, "If anybody tried to harm you, those men would be the first to help." Sister Jean continues, "I don't pretend to know what God thinks about everything, but I do believe he created each one of us out of love. It's up to us to learn to accept people, no matter how different they are. Acceptance has to come from the heart. I see people express harsh feelings towards those from other cultures, and it breaks my heart. We forget that Jesus made friends with everybody. He would cure anybody who came along, even though it made the scribes and the Pharisees angry. This shows us how accepting he was, and that should be our example. My parents constantly reinforced this notion, not only with their words, but more importantly, through their actions." Her father really set her to go on her path, and she attends Catholic school, and she writes, "Everywhere I turned, I was encouraged to reinforce my belief in the goodness and grace of God, that he always gets it right." She continues, "My life is a testament to the power of dreams. Mine came to me when I was in the 3rd grade." So this is where Dolores starts thinking about becoming a sister. She was very fond of her teacher, Sister Mary Patrice, and she was a BVM sister. And BVM is the Order of the Blessed Virgin Mary. And so she wanted to become a BVM sister just like her. What did you want to be when you grew up? This is it's always such a fun question. When did you want to be be what you are currently doing, or did you even have an idea of what that was?
Growing up, I wanted to be an Olympic figure skater, or I wanted to be Erin Andrews, who's she's a sports broadcaster.
Okay. Now, were you figure skating at the time, Suze?
I did figure skate. I did not figure skate competitively. Spoiler alert, it did not pan out, but I'm currently a TV producer. I do a lot with sports, so I feel like it's kind of along the same line,
Yeah.
but I did not know that that existed growing up. I don't think I knew that oh, somebody's telling this person what they should be talking about, or,
Yeah.
someone's behind the scenes pulling the strings. That didn't really click with me. I don't know when I thought that that's what I wanted to be, and to be honest, I still don't know if that's what I want to be. I don't even know. Did you always know you wanted to be an actress or a writer or director?
Well, growing up, I wanted to be a marine biologist at one point, which is bizarre because
Oh, love
I
that.
honestly I have a fear of the ocean now. Like dark water is terrifies me. So I don't really know where that came from.
Okay, cross that
Totally.
off.
Then in sixth grade, I was encouraged to audition for the school play and I ended up getting the lead. And after that, it was oh, people can do this for a living. Let's see what
Yeah.
happens. And then just as I've been in the business, I've been just wanting to take a little bit more creative control back over my life and over my career. And that's where the writing and producing has come into place.
Yeah, I love that.
Every day is a day forward.
Every day, yeah. I feel like we're kind of similar in that the hardest part of our jobs is landing the job.
Yeah.
Then once you get the job, you're probably great at it. I know what I'm doing.
Yep, totally.
It's the constant landing of it that I'm always is this what I want to be doing? But
yeah, totally, totally. And you're constantly is this the last job I will ever have?
yeah,
Ugh.
am I never going to work the rest of the year?
Luckily for Sister Jean, she knew at a very young age. And so here's the difference between a sister and a nun, which was something that I didn't know until I read her memoir.
I didn't either.
She writes, the difference is that a nun lives a more contemplative life in prayer and solitude. That would never have worked for me. I love being around people too much. And I knew from the very beginning that I wanted to teach young kids. And the BVM sisters were dedicated to just that. So she prayed on it, writing, Dear God, help me understand what I should do, but please tell me that I should become a BVM sister, which I thought was really cute.
Yeah, I love that.
She writes, there weren't many career options for young women at the time. We could become nurses, teachers, secretaries, or moms. That was the extent of it. I knew if I became a sister, it meant not getting married or being a mother, but I had no desire for those things. I was prepared for a lifetime commitment. Anything less than total devotion would not have worked. So it's just so beautiful that she found the path that she was meant to walk on.
Yeah.
So here's kind of her journey from sisterhood to Loyola. After high school, she enrolls at the Mount Carmel Mother House in Dubuque, Iowa. And she starts there on September 8th, 1937. And her mother had to make her a postulant habit. She writes, I was there for 2.5 years, even though through that period, I felt myself moving closer to God. What does that feel like? Well, for me, it was a feeling of relaxation. And most of all, just knowing I was on the proper course. I never felt pressure to do it. It came 100% from within. I owned it and I never questioned it. I knew I was in the right place and that the sacrifices I was making would set me up for a happy, purposeful life. Yeah, there's just something so soothing about, I love that she uses the word relaxation, when she feels like she's on this path, because I feel like that's exactly it. Isn't there just something things start to feel like they click in your life when you are on the quote right path, when you're not fighting against I don't know, it's just when everything comes together, there's an ease to it. Yeah. And it almost feels like if you're struggling so much, then maybe you just need to check in and reassess what it is that you want out of life and the best way to get there.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like I do that on a daily basis. I feel like I spend more time wondering is this the job I should be doing? Is this the place I should be living in? Is this, what I should be doing instead of focusing on what I am doing?
Yeah.
And then I feel like I look back and I'm well, shoot, I should have just been doing what I was doing instead of worrying about if I should be doing, because I'm still wondering, should I be doing this? And I feel like I'll probably always be wondering that.
Yeah.
Do you get that feeling?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, even just doing this podcast, it's such I get so much out of it, but it's a lot of work. And like currently, as stands, it's not lucrative at all. And so it is kind of finding that difficult balance between like pursuing things that excite you and like make you feel alive and make you feel purposeful and creative, but then also knowing that like there is a financial responsibility that like you have to your family and to your partner. And I feel really lucky that my husband's able to support us so that I can like pursue these creative dreams. But like I'd be lying if I said that I didn't need them to work out, you know?
Yeah.
So I think I know that she has chosen like a quote unquote simpler path for herself, but the trust that she has just in God, really. So if I can't find that trust in God for whatever reason, how do I find that trust in like myself or like my life that I know enough of what I'm doing or just like trust that like things will work out,
Yeah.
you know?
I think there's like, I'm envious of people who have that relaxation of knowing exactly what they want, of knowing like, oh, I know that I want to be this in life, or I know that I was like born to be a mother. Like I think the fact that like people have that certainty, because I feel like I kind of live in that limbo of like, do I want this? Do I not want this? Do I want to live here? Do I want to live somewhere else? Do I want to have a kid? Do I not want to have a kid? Where I think some people look at that as like, oh, you're so lucky you don't have kids. And I'm like, well, you're so lucky you knew that you wanted one. Because I'm kind of like, riding that line of do I not? So I feel like there's like an overwhelming sense of peace knowing that you're on the right path.
I think so many people can relate to the idea of feeling stuck and maybe being afraid to make the wrong decision. I've definitely felt that way many times in my life. And these aren't easy or little decisions that you're talking about. These are life-changing things.
Yeah, exactly. Like which is the right one? Is there a right? Is there a wrong?
I think you know this. There's not a right or a wrong, like
right.
All we can do is live our lives and do our best to make peace with our decisions so that we can just live in the present and focus on finding joy in the road that we picked. The phrase leap of faith just came to me, and I don't think it necessarily just means faith in God or faith in whatever you believe. Maybe it's about having faith in yourself, that you will make the most of whatever decision you make, regardless of what that decision is.
Like it's really hard to go
Yeah.
through life, like figuring things out as you go. That's all we're
Yeah.
doing. You'll figure it out, though.
We'll figure it out.
I don't have answers, but I can listen. Back to Sister Jean. She gets to pick her religious name. Yay! The postulant directus talks with Jean's mother about a name, and they both agree that Sister Dolores and Sister Bertha don't feel right. Which, Bertha, man, that's just not a name you hear very often anymore.
No.
But they can't think of anything. So finally, the directress just like puts her hand out on the piece of paper and she stops between Jane and Jean. And they pick Jean because it sounded better. And that's that. So sometimes you just have to also put your hand on a piece of paper and just roll with it.
Just go with it.
Okay, so in March 1940, she made her vows and was declared a sister of the Charity of the Blessed Virgin Mary, and her dream had come true. She writes about later encouraging the students at Loyola to chase their dreams, but have a plan and how to accomplish them, writing, "A dream without a plan is just a dream. Dreams require action, and action requires persistence." Which I love that because growing up, my dad always had this quote on his office desk, and I actually have it on my desk too. And it basically says persistence is the one thing, just the ability to keep moving forward and to keep going. That's how people make it. Okay, so now Sister Jean is a teacher. She writes a lot about the various faculty who helped her grow and some of the children that she specifically remembers. And we'll touch on a few of them, but we do not have time to touch on all of them. Her first assignment is teaching 5th grade at St. Vincent's, a school in Chicago. She writes, "We were blessed with a terrific principal and superior, Sister Mary Itis. She helped me learn that every little mishap was not a big tragedy. I was so young and eager, and I wanted everything to be perfect. I was not comfortable with my own limitations." I really loved that line.
Yeah.
I was not comfortable with my own limitations. I saw myself in that line. Because that's also what kind of growing up and being an adult is about. It's like learning what your limitations are and either working to push your limitations to grow stronger or smarter about something or whatever, or also just accepting it, making peace with it, and like pivoting.
Yeah, definitely.
She continues, "I wasn't at St. Vincent's a long time, but I learned a lot. The biggest thing I learned was to be patient with myself. There was so much I didn't know and had to improve upon, but I had to trust that God would get me there eventually." Patience is also something that I struggle with.
I feel the same way. I feel like there's some areas where I am patient. There's some where I'm just like, let's Let's go. Let's go. Let's go.
Let's figure it out. Next, she is assigned to open a new school in the Los Angeles area, and she writes about living in Pasadena. She's not allowed to drive at this point. Women of the sisterhood were not allowed to drive, so they had to rely on the mothers of the students to drive them. So she is at this school when Pearl Harbor happens and the United States enters World War II. She writes about how their lives were all changed instantly. Children had to wear dog tags with their names and telephone numbers engraved on them in case they were bombed and needed to be identified. I guess was really like, she didn't say that part, but that's what I inferred. Many fathers were sent to war, so now the mothers had to enter the workforce. There were bomb drills weekly. There were times called blackouts where you were not allowed to turn your lights on. She writes, "We dealt with our students' fears the only way we could, and that was by engaging in open conversation. We didn't hide or sugarcoat what was going on. We explained the situation to them clearly and told them it was okay to be afraid. We encouraged them to share their feelings." I just love how she writes about talking to children, not dumbing things down or like talking down to kids, because kids are so smart and they're so perceptive and they're picking up on so much more than you think.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you could have difficult conversations with your parents growing up? Was that even like a necessary thing?
I did feel like I could go to them with anything. I would talk to my mom about everything.
I love that. Okay, so later, Sister Jean is moved to St. Charles, and she writes about the celebrity children who attended the school. Frank Sinatra's kids, Bob Hope, Bing Crosby's. And I know that you've worked with your fair share of celebrities, a list of pop icons, sports stars. Have you ever been starstruck by someone?
I don't know if you'll believe me. I don't really get starstruck because I definitely understand that celebrities are people too. And,
Yeah.
when I'm working with them, I know they're there to do their job and I'm there to do my job. So I kind of look at it more like we're working together and not like, fawning over somebody. But that said, I have had, there are a few celebrities that I've interviewed where I've definitely thought to myself during the interview, like, oh my God, this is so cool. Would my 10-year-old self ever believe that I was doing this? Probably not, braces, like, blasting their music in my bedroom and having a dance party, probably not. But I would say two people that I like really admired growing up and to this day still really admire that I was able to interview were Celine Dion and Shania Twain. And I feel like just in interviewing them, it was just like, this is really cool.
Oh my gosh, that would definitely be like a pinch me moment.
Yeah, like I'm never going to go up to somebody and be like, can I take a selfie with you? Or can I have your autograph? Or that's just not really my personality. And I feel like I wouldn't have the job that I have now if I were like that. Because I feel like you have to be able to keep your cool a little bit.
Yeah.
I know you also have had your fair share of interactions.
Yeah, I've been really fortunate to work with some awesome people, Oscar winners. Marlee Matlin played my mom in a movie, and she was just so cool and so funny.
That's amazing.
And then I got to work with Denise Richards. She played my mom on a web series, and I was struck by how, she's Denise Richards. She's like one of the most beautiful women in the world, and she was so grounded. And we didn't even have trailers for this one. We were shooting at the YouTube space over in West LA. There was a moment where like she and I were just eating our lunch on the floor together, like in a hallway.
Oh my God, I love that.
I know. And then I've worked with some people who were nowhere near as big of names, and the ego on some of these people, it's just,
oh, that's how you
know.
Just
funny.
Yeah.
I know. It's just funny how it works. Like you realize why some people have had careers and some people don't.
Yeah, exactly.
So we're going to go ahead and skip to her time at Mundelein College, but I did love this quote that she wrote about eighth graders, which I think eighth grade is such a formative year. She wrote, "They are neither fish nor flesh. They're not babies, but they're not fully formed adults either. They're grown up, but they're not grown-ups. They're being forced to make a lot of decisions, but they don't always have the requisite maturity of judgment. When they made a mistake, our task wasn't to condemn them, but rather encourage them to understand why they had chosen wrongly so they wouldn't do it again." Her philosophy when it comes to young people, it's kind of like, on one hand, I was bummed that she's not a mom because I was like, she would have raised such incredible kids. And then I realized she's raised hundreds of incredible kids.
Yeah, definitely.
By her touch on them. And, I think teachers are just such an important gift to our society and our culture. And I pray that one day we will love them the way that they deserve to be loved. So she ends up going to Mundelein College in 1961. It's an all-girls school in Chicago, and it's right next to Loyola University. She's there for a really long time, and the school ultimately has to join with Loyola in order to save it. Basically, women stopped wanting to go to all-girls colleges. She worked really hard at Mundelein, kind of doing whatever they needed her to do, and she writes, "I pride myself on being the ultimate team player. Wherever I worked, it was my primary ambition to see the school succeed, and I do value ambition. It's great to dream big and pursue those dreams with vigor, but like so many things in life, we must practice moderation. If we don't, ambition can warp our perspective. Ambition is a healthy driver, but we need not allow it to make us lose our sense of selves. Which, again, she just kind of has these like nuggets of wisdom.
I know.
I have had moments in my career where like my ambition has a deep, dark cloud kind of overtaken everything else in my life. And if I wasn't doing as well as like I wanted to be doing at that moment, I was just so unhappy in everything else. And it's just a good reminder to like to keep things in perspective. Just because you're not always necessarily succeeding the way that you want to in one aspect of your life doesn't mean that you can't be happy and grateful for like what is going well.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I feel like my dreams and ambitions are sometimes almost too big. And I'm not going to say they're unattainable because I'm still trying to attain them.
Yeah.
But I'm like almost disappointed when when I don't feel like it's going that way, or when I'm like, at a standstill. But then I kind of take a step back and I'm like, okay, but look at everything that you have done or that are doing. But I'm like, but I can't get that one thing that like I really want that I've been trying to do or whatever. And I feel like I'm failing. And I feel like it's like a double-edged sword. Like you don't want to not dream big, but then when you dream too big and you're like, but you got to have a plan to get there.
Suze, I see you is all I can say. Cause like
I see you too.
I get that. I get that.
I know. I think that's why we click so much.
I agree. I think one thing that helps me is like every day that I wake up and I can still pursue that dream is a good day.
Yeah.
You're right. Just because sometimes you take one step forward, 4 steps back, at least you're still walking.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so in the spring of 1991, Mundelein is officially becomes affiliated with Loyola University. All right, and we skip a little bit forward. In 1994, she is 75 years old, and Loyola offers her a generous retirement package. Though she is able to keep working, technically only 500 hours a year, but she can volunteer as much as she wants. She writes, I figured I would keep moving along this path and help out wherever I could, with a big smile, but minimal fanfare. Little did I know that things were about to change. A new assignment was heading my way, and though it would take years, it turned out to be the most transformational and transcendent position of my life. And so, yeah, kind of speaking to everything we've been talking about, one of my biggest takeaways from her memoir is this idea that like magic can happen to you at any age.
Yeah.
As long as you stay open to it, you keep on your path, and you're just trying to be your best, hardworking, good self, be a part of the greater good, like you said, and keep yourself open to life's beautiful possibilities. We'll be open to life's magic.
Yeah.
This is part of like living her life as a sister. She starts every day off at 5 a.m. with a prayer of gratitude to God and then a 30-minute meditation. Do you meditate, Suze?
I don't. I wish I did. I've definitely tried.
Yeah.
But do you?
I've gone in and out. Like I've had moments where I'm like, I'm going to do this. And then I'll like do it for a few days. And then, but it is something that's really hard for me.
Yeah.
Then she reads the gospel on her iPad and she writes, I'm pretty comfortable with modern technology. I've always said, if you're not moving forward, you're going to get left behind real quick. Adaptability is my superpower. So I love that.
I love that. Yeah.
She writes just a couple of quotes about like sitting in silence and reflecting. And so she writes, my reading done, I sit and reflect. When I was studying to be a sister, I learned to set aside time to sit quietly and think. Now, if I notice I'm distracted, which is natural, I try to get myself back to God. When you have so much on your mind, it's easier to be distracted. It's easy to be distracted. We're human beings, after all. She continues, I think we could all be a little happier and more productive if we set aside quiet time, especially at the start of our days. How are you with silence? Do you like silence?
I feel okay with silence. I think it depends on the kind of silence. I think,
Yeah.
If I've had a day full of stimulation, I'm kind of like, okay, I'm okay sitting here in silence. Or, if it's nighttime, I try to put my phone out of reach so I don't grab for it and scroll on the internet. I think if I'm like having a discussion with my husband and he's silent, I'm like, say something. What do you like? Say something. How do you find silence in your home with kids?
I don't find a lot of it, which is good. For me, I'm working on being okay with silence.
Yeah.
When we were growing up and we didn't have all these things to keep us distracted or engaged all the time, like you would just kind of like find yourself lying in your bed, daydreaming or fantasizing. And as a writer, that stuff is so important. So
Yeah.
I have to like give myself that time and that quiet. But I like to have the TV on in the background. I like to have a podcast going or listen to music. I like to fill my space with noises.
Yeah.
But reading this in her memoir totally clicked with me that it's a very important thing thing. And it almost feels like if you're like a battery and you need to recharge, your brain doesn't recharge if you're constantly engaging with it.
Yeah.
You owe it to yourself. And that's what meditation is too. But it's like finding what works for you. Because I think if you think of it as meditation, then it feels like you're supposed to do it a certain way. There's a right way and a wrong way to meditate. At least that's how I take it.
Yeah.
Kind of like, well, what if I just turn all the noises off and like lay on my back in my room? What is that? Is that meditating? I don't know. She writes this, along with that time for reflection, I also understand that we all need a pat on the back once in a while, including from ourselves. Before I go to sleep each night, I think of all the good things I did that day. That way I know I will wake up happy in the morning. Although let's face it, at my age, I'm always happy when I wake up. And when I do, I sit up and I start my morning ritual all over again, awash in the gratitude that once again, God has empowered me to wake up with purpose. Do you pat yourself on the back? I know we like have sort of talked around this a little bit, how we both, it seems like we both kind of have trouble acknowledging the good that we are doing in our lives and that is in our lives because we have ambitions for more or like we're empaths. And so it's hard for us to just be like, I did good today. You know, like after we're done with this podcast, we should be like, you should very much be proud. I know you had some nerves about doing this today.
Oh, I was terrified.
Well, look at you doing it. But you know, like, do you do that? Do you take the time? Because we do that with our kids all the time. I do. You know, I'm like, I'm so proud of you. Look how, even if it's just an effort, but we don't do it to ourselves, do we?
No, I don't think that I ever pat myself on the back really for much. I have like a daily like to-do list and I'll put on there like workout. So when I like check it off, I feel like that's like a pat. I checked it off. I pat myself on the back and move on.
I love checking things off my to-do list. So sometimes I'll put like the most innocuous thing on my to-do list just so I can check it off.
Oh, same. Shower? Check. So, and you know what? Sometimes that's what your day consists of. It's okay.
I'm going to surprise you over the next couple of weeks. I'm going to text you at the end of each day and be like, pat yourself on the back for something today.
Yes.
You're not going to know what's coming.
I love that. I will do the same.
Okay, good. So let's get into Sister Jean, the celebrity, the basketball nun, even though that was wrong. Not a nun. She's a sister. So she writes from a young age that her parents fostered in her a love of sports, and she played basketball at school. She writes, most of all, I like that most sports require teamwork. That is what life is about. Families have to have teamwork. Husband and wives have to have teamwork. Businesses have to have teamwork. Sports encourage that. We say that all the time at Loyola. No one person can do it alone. It has to be the whole group together. And that just goes hand in hand with the quote that you read at the very beginning, which I also loved.
I think it's super important for young people to play sports for a myriad of reasons. It's good physically, it's good mentally. Like Sister Jean said, it teaches teamwork. It teaches like camaraderie. Your team is like a built-in friend group. Maybe you don't get along with everybody, but you have to work together to figure it out. I played a ton of sports growing up, from soccer, softball, basketball. I also played tennis, which is an individual sport. And I feel like that is so very physical, but also, in my opinion, so much more mental than it is physical. And that taught me so much about like the mental aspect of life, that it's like, I'm the only one out there. So this is on me. If I win, if I lose, it's on me. And you kind of have to go out there and figure it out on your own. If you're in a tough situation, you got to figure out how to get out of that tough situation. And if you're cruising, you got to figure out how to not get too cocky. And if you're losing, you got to figure out how to like come back and have a miracle of some sort, but just figuring out how to like stay in it. And I think that is a big thing in life too, just figuring out like if you're down on yourself, just figuring out how to stay in it.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it teaches, encourages, and strengthens that mental stamina.
Yeah, I'm a huge advocate for sports and young people. And even if it's not, it doesn't have to be basketball. It could be gymnastics. It could be, you know, a lot of young kids do like the Ninja Warrior classes. That's all part of it.
Yeah, whatever gets your kid excited and like wanting to be a part of something bigger so that they can just like pick up these lessons.
Yeah, definitely.
So it's fall of 1994, and Sister Jean is approached to be the basketball team's chaplain. She's retired at this point, remember, but she's still working here or there, and this is a volunteer gig. She writes, to be honest, I wasn't quite sure what a team chaplain did, so I did what I always did when I got a new job. Dove in with full enthusiasm and good intentions and trusted that whatever I didn't know, I'd come to know in time. Again, there's that word trust, peace, like, she lives such a beautiful way. And I know she gets a lot of this from God.
Yeah.
As I was reading it, I was like, but how can I get this? Or people who don't believe in God. Like, I would love to hear how they find this same like trust and peace. Is it just like in themselves? Is it just like in life, in humanity?
I don't know.
She writes about the different coaches that were there during her time at Loyola, and she saw quite a few because they were often tasked with turning a losing program around, and they didn't have very long to prove themselves. She writes about the players that come in and out of her life, and she remembers so many of them and details of them. You can tell that these people really left their mark on her, and obviously she left her mark on them. She's so incredibly proud of all of them. She writes, "The only thing I look for when I watch the games is who is a team player. In sports, it's not just about excelling as an individual or scoring the most points. You have to match your skills with the rest of the teams and be willing to do whatever it takes to win. This is a major reason why I believe in the power of athletics to teach important skills those players can use forever. Life is a team sport after all." I loved when she wrote this. I may be an old nun, but I know my hoops.
I love that.
And I thought it was interesting that she called herself a nun. But maybe it's just because everybody else called her a nun for so long. I don't know.
Yeah.
So she becomes famous when Loyola finally makes it to March Madness. It's the 2017-2018 season. It's also Loyola's 100th anniversary season. So just like a very magical moment happening. Sister Jean is 98. And everything just comes together. Sister Jean is wheelchair bound, like you mentioned earlier, Suze, because of an injury, but her excitement is palpable and reporters start picking up on it. She's an overnight sensation. She writes about how she has her photo taken and she can't help but chuckle because if it were still the 1950s, she wouldn't have been allowed to have her photo taken and she would have needed to be completely out of sight. So, like, thank goodness for progression, right?
I know.
Or else we wouldn't have Sister Jean.
I love how she also said, Sister Jean mentions, it took me 98 years to become an overnight sensation. And I thought that was hilarious.
I know. I love it.
So true.
She's got such a great sense of humor throughout the memoir as well. The Loyola Ramblers are the Cinderella team, the underdog. She writes this, "I'm often asked, is it appropriate to pray for the Ramblers to win? Of course it is. I believe God gives us all talents, and it's up to us to use them as best we can. We don't know if God will grant our wish, but I still think it's good to pray. You should do everything within the rules and standards of fair play to try and win the game. And if you don't win, you have to be a good sport about it. That is all God asks of us." I was glad that she brought that up because that's something that like my husband and I will always joke about at the beginning of really any game. Everyone's praying to win. Like, doesn't it just like balance itself out, you know? Okay, the Sister Jean bounce becomes a thing. It's this weird move that the ball did to help the Ramblers squeak out a win. Basically, you know, the guy went for the shot and the ball bounced around the rim and typically the ball would bounce out, but this time the ball bounced in and everybody thought for sure that like Sister Jean had like connected with God to make this moment happen. She writes, "They suggested that somehow my prayers made that ball defy the laws of gravity to go in. Is that true? Who's to say that it isn't? That's the beauty of God. We never really know what he's doing or why. We have to trust him to do his part and then it's up to us to do ours. The players worked hard for that victory. If it took a Sister Jean bounce to get us to the Sweet 16, then that was definitely worth celebrating." I do just love how she's like, these are my beliefs and like this is what I was asking for. I love that it's still so open to interpretation. Like she has her faith, but she's not putting her faith on other people.
Right.
She shares it with people because it's brought her so much peace in her life that like she wants everyone to live with such peace. But she's not like, of course God did this because I asked him to. And like that's the way God works. She's just like, even I don't know how God works. But like that's what faith is.
Yeah.
Loyola goes to the Final Four for the first time since 1963, and this is where they lose. But it's still such an achievement.
You know, in sports, it's a lot easier to root for a team or a person, an athlete, when you know the story behind them. So I think having somebody like Sister Jean is a home run for a team like Loyola or a team like anybody. And I just feel like as a bonus, you find out she's like a really good person. So you're like, oh my God, I'm so happy that she's the person that we're rooting for. I feel like, you know, these days it's like the people becoming famous are like the Cash Me Outside girl. And it's like, it's just so refreshing that it's Sister Jean and she's just a good person.
There was just such like a loveliness about her that I think America needed at that time and honestly continues to need now. Like we need just truly grounded, joyful people.
We need a Sister Jean resurgence. This coming March Madness.
Totally. In 2019, Sister Jean turns 100 and her birthday becomes Sister Jean Day in Illinois. Okay, so I wanted to share some of Sister Jean's thoughts on social issues because I feel like I just love her philosophy of the world. And I think that right now there's a lot of like weaponizing religion that's happening to like validate a certain stance on something or like validate a more maybe like traditional stance on something. And so I found this really refreshing. She writes, When writing about the tumult of the 1960s, civil rights movement, women's movement, the Vietnam War, and more, it's not the job of a university to form a protective cocoon around its students so that they can focus solely on their studies. It's the university's job to make sure that students are connected to their community and their country. In many cases, this is the best way for them to learn who they are, what they believe, and who they want to become. Mark Twain said it best, "I have never let schooling interfere with my education." She writes about believing that abortions are immoral, but that this matter should stay out of politics completely, which I appreciated. It's like, you have your beliefs, fine, but like they may not be mine. And like, guess what? We have to coexist as a country that don't all believe the same things.
Yeah.
She writes about being wise about where you get your news sources and how disappointed she is in the false information spread about COVID and vaccines. She's very much not an anti-vaxxer. She writes about how we need to believe that climate change is happening and how we need to care for the earth. She calls George Floyd's death one of the most tragic events she witnessed and how God wants us to connect with one another, not see each other as other, but together as humans. She writes about being tolerant of other people's religions and how Loyola actually has one of the largest Muslim populations of any university in the country. And it's a Catholic institution.
Wow.
I know. I thought that was really cool. She writes, "I worry we have lost much of our community spirit, and I pray often that we find it again." Hitting the nail on the head. Community spirit. Like, it's such a simple phrase, and that's exactly it. Like I said, she goes into way further detail about these issues and other things in the book. And I just want to end it with this. I really don't understand people who want to whitewash history and insist that school teachers don't inform their students of the unpleasant realities of our past. People are fallible, and our country, while great, is far from perfect. If we don't learn about our mistakes, how will we learn from them?
I like that.
And she just really writes about being so grateful and fortunate that she's lived this long, experienced all that she has. She writes about how people can sense that she's a happy person because she tries to do as much good as she can. And that seems to really be it. She focuses on good, she celebrates good, she asks for good, she does good.
Yeah.
I think that's it.
I think that's the secret.
She ends her book with her hopes for us, the readers. She writes, "I hope I've helped people understand that it's easy to do good if you want to do good. I hope this book helps people become a little bit more forgiving of themselves and others. Anger and pain are difficult burdens for us to carry." Do you have any hopes that you'd like to add to that, Suze, or?
I also try to live by this, but I think my hope for people is just that they live an authentic life that's true to themselves. And I feel like with like social media these days, it's really hard to do that. And I feel like you just see people doing things that aren't really true to themselves. And they're doing it because someone said it was cool or because they saw it was trendy or something. And it's like, I feel like people would be a lot happier. I mean, I don't really remember like back in the day being like comparing myself to so many people, you know?
No.
And I feel like I was so much like, I don't know, maybe it was
Happier?
because I was like younger and had like less cares in the world, but I don't
No,
know.
I think it goes hand in hand. I think people living their authentic selves, feeling safe to do so,
Yeah.
is really important.
What about you?
I think one thing that I would hope for people, and this is just something that's been on my mind lately, the thing that I've been focusing on is living a life of awe. I remember reading this thing, this writer encouraged whoever read the thing to go outside and like look at a leaf. You remember when you were a child and like everything, I see this through my kids' eyes all the time. Like they're constantly discovering. And I think a part of that is getting back into nature and just finding awe, finding something to be in awe of every day.
I love that. That's awesome. I'm gonna adopt that.
Okay, yes, I love it. You adopt that. I'll text you, pat yourself on the back. We'll keep each other moving forward. We'll do it. There are just a few quotes that I want to share. She writes about an African proverb: "When an old person dies, a library closes." It's reflected in her book, I think. People have lived completely full lives before you know them.
Right, exactly.
Their stories matter, their information matters, the way that they move through their life matters. And that's one of my biggest regrets with my grandparents is that I didn't have the opportunity to do that. I just didn't think to do that before I lost them. And like, I wish I knew more about them.
Yeah.
Now being a young parent, like what was that like for them?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. No, I agree. My grandma died when I was in 8th grade, my mom's mom. And I so wish that I could ask her things now.
Yeah.
But I was 12.
That you knew her as like a person, not a grandmother.
Yeah.
You don't think about that stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And like, I feel like when she died, I was in like my prime awkward stage and I want to just be like, I made it out.
Totally.
I made it out. I did okay. I'm like a totally different version.
Yeah, it does feel like one of the ways that like youth is wasted on the young, though. Where
Oh
you're
my
just like,
gosh.
no, ask more questions of each other. Just learn about them. Learn as much as you can. Learn.
Yeah.
Sister Jean also writes this: I believe happiness is a choice. As hard as things get sometimes, we can still choose to be happy, and that choice can be contagious. We can make those around us a little happier if we choose to be happy ourselves. And I agree.
Yes.
Yeah,
I agree.
and then the last one, we try so hard to make things happen. Sometimes we're successful, sometimes we're disappointed, and sometimes God just blows us away. We pray so hard and so often, and maybe we feel a little guilty about asking too much. And then God comes along, dispenses his miracles, and we realize all along that we were asking for too little. I feel like that just is really speaking to you and I right now. And I think you can easily replace the word God with universe. Like, I don't think that it has to be this strictly religious thing. Yeah, I feel like maybe that's a really good note for us to leave this episode on.
Amen.
That is Sister Jean's Wake Up with Purpose, What I've Learned in My First 100 Years. And of course, that was written with help by Seth Davis. This was such a lovely pick-me-up of a book.
Yeah.
Learning a lot of information about an incredible woman, and then also just her little like nuggets of wisdom.
I really loved it. Loved learning about her. It was very like comforting to read. Like you kind of did feel like you were sitting down with like an old mentor or a grandmother or something like that.
Yeah, it was just so refreshing to have an extremely religious person talk about love and acceptance instead of stroking fear and division. Like I said, I think you can easily replace God with universe or whatever big force works for you with all of the points that she makes. Have faith in something bigger than yourself, be part of a team, work hard, stay positive, and open to meet God or the universe or whatever in the middle. Roll with the punches if it doesn't go your way, and have faith that in the end, everything will be okay.
I love it. God bless you, Sister Jean.
Yes. Suze, thank you so much for joining me today. I really loved our talk. I love that you kind of called it like a little therapy session, because that's how I feel every single time that I sit down and do one of these with my wonderful friends. I loved learning more about you and the way that you see life, and I am excited to continue moving forward with you by my side as my friend.
Thank you so much for having me. You're so good at this. I loved being here.
Oh, you're the best. Okay, bye, Suze.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Babes in Bookland. To access the full version of this episode, you can subscribe on Apple Podcasts or support us on Patreon. Visit babesinbookland.com for more information.